welcome to the latest episode of the Dharma podcast. In today's episode, we will narrate the unknown story of the attempted capture of Delhi in less than a month after India got independence from British rule. To begin with, let me read out a quote from the autobiography of Sri D.P. Mishra, who had served as a Home Minister and Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh. Mr. D.P. Mishra was the father of the late Brajesh Mishra, who was India's former national security advisor. So here's a quote. Almost invariably, with the disappearance of the colonial rulers, unity and security also vanish. This is what actually happened in India as the British started leaving. The gift of unity departed with the advent of independence. This was admitted by Mountbatten when he told Kuldeep Nayyar in 1971 in London that wherever colonial rule has ended, bloodshed has been there, and this is the price you pay for it. The unprecedented butchery in the Northwest demonstrated that the transfer of power has been wrongly characterized as peaceful inasmuch as India had to fight for its survival in the very hour of its birth as an independent nation. Close quote. We all know that the partition of India is one of the bloodiest episodes in human history. But what remains mostly unknown are its innumerable after effects and byproducts. And these are more tragic because they have a sense of permanence. For example, the overnight displacement, impoverishment, and horrible suffering of millions of Hindus who escaped from the newly created Pakistan tops the list of these permanent tragedies. But there was also another kind of consequence that followed the British transfer of India and the partition of India, which has largely been forgotten. This was a constant threat to the physical safety of Hindus in large parts of northern India, including but not limited to Kashmir. The combined forces of the so called two nation theory, which had ultimately snatched Pakistan, had tasted blood, and now they were thirsty for more. And this time, they set their ambition, they set their target much, much higher. This ambition, this target, was to capture Delhi itself, and it took the shape of a concrete plan hatched in Pakistan. That is, the newly minted Pakistan. So, the new leaders of the new Pakistan had made a simple calculation to execute this plan. They saw that India was busy grappling with countless problems in the aftermath of the partition. And so they thought that this was the perfect opportunity to launch a surprise invasion and seize Delhi itself. The plan was set in motion in Pakistan and was executed from within India by the members of the Indian Muslim League. It could have succeeded but for the courageous intervention of the vigilant Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. And so, here is the story of this attempted siege of Delhi that took place in September 1947, barely a month after India obtained freedom. The story begins with a report of an intelligence official named Rai Bahadur Bakshi Badrinath, who was closely monitoring the Muslim League's activities in northwestern India, especially in Punjab, Haryana, and Delhi. Now, in his book, the late journalist Durga Das, India from Curzon to Nehru. In that book, Durga Das summarizes the main points of Badrinath's report, and I quote him. There was a conspiracy to extend Pakistan's boundary up to Jamuna. When the administrative changeover took place, every East Punjab district had a predominantly Muslim constabulary, and the Muslim Leaguers decided that they should capture the police armories between the 12th and 14th of August, kill all the Hindu and Sikh officers and declare the area independent of India. Close quote. Next, you have Mr. V.P. Menon, who was Sardar Patel's trusted aide. He says the same thing differently, and I quote him. While panic stricken refugees poured into the city of Delhi, the capital buzzed with rumors of a deep laid, long prepared Muslim conspiracy to overthrow the new government of Free India and to seize the capital. Close quote. But on the other hand, India's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, this man appeared to be unserious about such a grave threat coming right next door. With astounding stupidity, Nehru actually believed that he could convince his old friend Liaquat Ali Khan to dissuade his jihadi fanatics in Pakistan from their attempted capture of Delhi. Simultaneously, Nehru also did something else. He requested Gandhi to visit Delhi to calm down the tense atmosphere in the city. And so, Gandhi went to Delhi from Noakhali and he began to tour the city's refugee camps and other places. One of his visits was to the Irvin Hospital, which is now known as the Lok Nayak Hospital. He visited the refugees and the wounded people in the hospital, and then after he left, barely a few moments after he left, there was rapid firing of bullets on the hospital, leaving large holes in its walls and shattering its windows. The bullets came from three separate buildings opposite the hospital. The first was from the office of the Muslim League's official newspaper, Dawn. Now, Dawn today is the quasi official mouthpiece of the Pakistan government. The second building was from a mansion that contained fanatical Muslim League members. The third was from a mosque adjacent to this building. The moment he heard this news, Sardar Patel knew that he had a warlike situation on his hand and he instantly swung into action. His police force combed the whole area, searching the Dawn office, searching the mosque and all the Muslim houses in the area, and recovered a massive stash of Sten guns, rifles, revolvers, mortars, grenades, and wireless transmitter sets. Clearly, this was a declaration and an outbreak of a war. The worst fears expressed by the IB about Pakistan's plan to capture Delhi had come true with this horrible incident of firing. Sardar Patel was also faced with another challenge. This was an acute shortage of the police force. VP Menon once again gives us the reason for this shortage of police troops, and I quote him. Many of the Muslim officers who were drawn from the Punjab had opted to serve Pakistan. It was particularly essential that Delhi should be saved from the impending chaos at whatever cost. Danger to the capital meant a threat to the very existence of the nascent dominion. It was clear that some extraordinary and forceful action was necessary. Close quote. But then, Sardar Patel was a tough leader who loved to face a challenge head on. So he convened an emergency committee and summoned Mountbatten from Shimla, and he made him the chairman of this emergency committee. It consisted of 15 members, including different cabinet ministers, the commander in chief, representatives of the Supreme Command, the Chief Commissioner of Delhi, the Inspector General of Police, the Director General of Civil Aviation, and members of the Medical Department, Railways, and some co opted members. The first meeting of this committee was held early in the morning on September 6, 1947, in Mountbatten's study room. Note the date, September 6th, 1947, and India had obtained independence on August 15th, 1947. less than a month or 2 weeks. The emergency committee unanimously appointed Sardar Patel to lead the whole operation. Patel's main opponent, Nawab Nehru, also conceded that you are the strongest pillar of the cabinet. But unlike Gandhi and Nehru, Sardar Patel neither had woolly headed illusions about Pakistan nor was he afraid to take ruthless action. And so Sardar Patel put several things into motion at the same time. He gave carte blanche to all the armed forces and the police. He wrote to the chief ministers of Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, and other states requesting them to send their police force to Delhi immediately. Each day, Sardar Patel personally toured the streets of Delhi to monitor the situation. Gandhi's personal secretary Pyare Lal, he narrates a particular incident which shows why Sardar Patel is regarded as the Iron Man of India. I quote Pyare Lal. One day, Sardar Patel found that firing had been going on incessantly from a building occupied by the Muslims for the last 24 hours. Why has this pocket not been cleared? Sardar asked a high military officer accompanying him. The latter replied that this was not possible with the force at their disposal unless they blew up the whole building. Then why didn't you do it? The Sardar snapped. Close quote. And this was the precise order that they needed. And so the threat was smashed in a matter of days, and Sardar Patel had crushed the potential siege of Delhi, which was planned in Pakistan and executed by the members of the Muslim League in India. But this happy ending also has a sad footnote. We can quote Mr. D.P. Mishra again. What is regrettable is that the steps taken by Patel to save the capital from chaos did not meet with the approval of Gandhi, Nehru, and Azad. It becomes difficult to avoid the impression that while Sardar was waging a war against India's enemies, he was also being hampered by constant criticism from those who were expected to aid him. I guess further commentary on this behavior, rather this typical behavior of Gandhi, Nehru, and Azad, and rest of that gang. I think further commentary on their behavior at such a dire circumstance is unnecessary. And as we always say, Mr. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was the best friend that Pakistan ever had. And on that rather tragic note, we can conclude this episode. And if you like the work that we are doing at the Dharma podcast, please subscribe to our channel, like and share our videos so that they reach a wider audience. And please do consider making a contribution of your choice and taking a membership of our channel. Namaste, Vande Mataram.